Welcome to South Asia Democratic Forum podcast. This is Rayhan Rashid, your host today. Today's episode isn't just a story of gross human rights violation. It's an urgent appeal and it's a call to action. Today's episode is about Shahriar Kabir. Let me tell you about Shahriar Kabir, a celebrated children's writer turned activist, a thought leader in his own right. Shahriar Kabir has spent his whole life fighting for a secular society, fighting for minority rights, demanding justice for genocide, and standing against the rise of religious extremism in Bangladesh. But these ideals, his courage, his convictions, his activism, are now costing him dearly. 121 days ago, Shahriar Kabir was arrested on false charges under the current regime led by Dr. Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel laureate the world knows. The regime's supporters and its army of propagandists would want to convince the world otherwise. But the truth is, it is a regime propped up by extremist and military forces that find people like Shahriar Kabir's activism incompatible with their worldview. What is now happening to Shahriar Kabir is more than political retaliation. It's a gross injustice. And this is not just Shahriar Kabir's fight. It's a fight for freedom of speech, for justice, and for the kind of world we all want to live in. Today, we'll dig into the story and ask what we can do to secure his release. Today, we have with us Natalia Sineaeva-Pankowska and Mona Haghgou Strindberg. Let me introduce them. Natalia is joining from Poland. She is an educator and a human rights activist. She is with the Never Again, which is a human rights organization. And she researches Holocaust distortion. She is also a fellow of European Holocaust Research Infrastructure, and Natalia is also the fellow of Elie Wiesel National Institute for the Study of the Holocaust in Romania. And Mona, she is a human rights lawyer, and she is based in Sweden, who had been closely involved with Shahriar Kabir's legal matter from the very beginning. So welcome Natalia, welcome Mona, and thank you for joining us. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My first question, and this is a question I need to ask both of you. What was your initial reaction when you first heard about Shahriar Kabir's situation? I'm asking this because in the eyes of the world, the country Bangladesh is now led by a celebrated Nobel laureate. And according to parts of international media, everything is great. So were you surprised, shocked? Natalia, what do you think? I would want to hear your reaction first, then I'd go to Mona.
So thank you very much for the question. And I would like just to start maybe first by express my gratitude to the South Asian Democratic Forum and to the host, Dr. Rayhan, for inviting me to discuss this important issue. And it's a real honor for me to talk about our dear colleague and our friend Shahriar Kabir. And I'd like maybe in the beginning to give a bit of background how I met. And it was in Bangladesh and Dhaka several years ago during one of the conferences dedicated to the topic of genocide. And since then, we have worked together closely, particularly around issues of genocide commemoration and human rights. And today I'm also talking on behalf of my organization, the Never Again Association, which is based in Warsaw, and it is a human rights organization which has been existing for 25 years. It is based in Warsaw, but it is known and it is active globally. And over last years, we had many opportunities to meet with Shahriar Kabir in different countries, including Bangladesh, but also Belgium, and collaborate on various projects, including conferences, webinars, and discussions focused on peace, on human rights, on non-violence, recognition of Bangladeshi and other non-recognized genocides. And for example, together we have been developing a project promoting pillars of positive peace for Bangladesh, which was presented during the Rotary Peace Project Incubator event in Geneva in Switzerland. And we also have been invited as representatives of the Never Again Association to contribute to his journal, the journal which was published by his organization, the Forum for Secular Bangladesh, Awakening Journal, which was established in Poland to commemorate the Holocaust, to commemorate genocide happening during the Second World War in Poland and Eastern Europe, in Europe. He invited always us to contribute, to share our perspective, experience of dealing with the past process in our part of the world and the challenging we are facing. So we regularly contributed to this publication, invited by Shahriar Kabir. And I have also to say that Shahriar Kabir is known and respected in Eastern Europe and in Poland particularly. For example, he was the first journalist from Asia who took an interview with Lech Wałęsa, and Lech Wałęsa was the first democratically elected president in Poland. Also, Shahriar Kabir covered democratic changes in Eastern Europe. It was more than 30 years ago, and he published a book about it in Bengali, so he contributed to informing people about our part of the world in Bangladesh. And through all of this, we admire his deep commitment to contribute to the development also of Bangladesh as a secular, democratic, and inclusive country, where people of all religious backgrounds live peacefully. We closely... You asked me how I reacted. What was my first reaction to this news about Shahriar Kabir? And I would like to say that we closely, and my organization followed the political situation in Bangladesh, the student protests, the resignation of Sheikh Hasina, and follow-up violence. And actually, we visited Bangladesh just a few months before these changes.
Okay.
And during our visit, we saw already the growing tensions, growing critical mass of people, but we didn't expect the scale of violence. So it was a big surprise for this. And we immediately contacted our colleagues and friends in Bangladesh. Of course, we contacted Shahriar Kabir and asked about his situation. And he shared with us his interview about the current situation, where he said, "I would be the last one to leave the country." So he was uncompromised human rights defender who is very much committed to values on which Bangladesh was founded. And he shared with us this interview, and then in some time, I think maybe in 1 month, we learned that Shahriar Kabir was arrested, and we learned it from the social media. And I think I received this information from my colleague from the Never Again Association, and we were very deeply concerned about how he had been treated, because Shahriar Kabir is someone who has been outspoken for truth, for justice, for accountability, and particularly regarding the genocide that took place during the Liberation War in Bangladesh, but also about other genocides. And he was outspoken about minority rights, about rights of indigenous people in Bangladesh. So he is someone who Bangladesh should be proud of instead of being in prison. So that is why it was a big shock for us. But of course, we knew and we know that he is uncompromised human rights defender. So we already knew that something could happen. And also, as he said, that I would be the last one who leaves the country. So we were very much concerned about this situation. And after learning about this fact, I immediately wrote to the mailing list of participants of one of the international webinars that Shahriar Kabir and his organization organized, asking for more information about him, about what we could do, how we can contribute. And then South Asian Democratic Forum prepared a letter which we all signed and distributed widely. And since then, since September, I and my colleagues at the Never Again Association, we have been contacting different organizations. I have written to Amnesty International, to Human Rights Watch, to Global Alliance Against Hate and Extremism, and to many other organizations, so to bringing the attention to the situation. And many of these people were already also signed the letter. For example, we know that Gregory Stanton, who is the founding president of the Genocide Watch, and he's one of the leading scholars on genocide, he signed the letter. A global project against hate and extremism from the US also signed the letter. Greek Helsinki Monitor from Greece, one of the leading human rights and the oldest human rights organization in Europe, also signed the letter. Geert Ates from the United for Intercultural Action from the Netherlands signed the letter. Also, Foreign Policy in Focus from the US also signed the letter. And even Alexander Verkhovsky, who is the director of a SOVA research center from Russia, it's a human rights center, also signed the letter. So as you could see, it was a really global response. So many people,
That's
they
true.
understood the
That's
situation
true.
as such.
I remember that because I also signed that, and many of my colleagues who were human rights activists, they also signed it. And I think some of the very prominent authors also signed that letter. Do you know what happened to that letter? Like that letter, it didn't get a single line, a single word in Bangladeshi media. It was completely blacked out, unfortunately. Bangladeshi media didn't publish a single word about it, no mention of it. That was so unfortunate. Thank you, Natalia, for sharing
Thank you,
your
thank you. I hope
experience
I
with.
was not too long, but I just
No,
wanted
no,
to
no, no, no.
share but how we met
It
with
was great.
Shahriar
It was
Kabir
great,
and
uh,
how it
and
impacted all of us.
and
Thank you.
and you shared your personal experience, organizational experience with Shahriar Kabir. I think our viewers they would also be interested to learn to hear those things, because Shahriar did a lot of things. He was involved in so many activism, so much, and his activism was actually diverse. So so yeah, your contribution basically touched on that. So Mona, when you heard about the accusations those were Shahriar Kabir was facing, weren't you shocked that he has been accused of genocide and crimes against humanity?
As my colleague Natalia expressed, I was also in a state of shock. I couldn't believe it, especially when it comes to the fact that we have a Nobel Prize winner, right, in the leadership of the country. And the accusation is, of course, not only a shock, it is bizarre. We are talking about a human rights
Genocide.
act. Yes, we are talking about a human rights activist who's devoted his life, so many years of his life, fighting against human rights abuses and shedding light to genocide that took place before. And we are talking about a man, a courageous man who has courage beyond words for the fight that he has devoted his life to against fundamentalism in a part of the world, as we know, in which it is super serious to do this kind of conduct that Mr. Shahriar Kabir has been involved with. So this is super tragic, and it is this the country of Bangladesh should be proud of a man like Shahriar Kabir, and they should honor him instead of what we are
Not
unfortunately experiencing
persecuted.
now. Yes. So this is all persecution.
Yes, because a lot of what is going on, the world doesn't know, and hope discussions like this, like today's, will help change that. Uh, my next question is about the current situation, and this is something I'd like to ask Mona. As an international human rights lawyer, you have been very closely involved with Shahriar Kabir's matter from the beginning, in particular dealing with the UN Working Group's application, the complaint. So, what do we know about the conditions Kabir is enduring in custody at the moment, and how is his health? You just mentioned about two charges, like the genocide and crimes against humanity he has been accused of. Can you speak of the other charges leveled against him, or why are they being called? Are we calling those charges ridiculous? Just give your just observation.
So avoiding to speak too much about details of the
Of
case,
course, I understand that.
we could say that it's also charges about murder. I mean, it's bizarre charges, and the current state of Mr. Shahriar Kabir is very alarming regarding his age and the health complications that he already had before he was put in detention and now in prison under very terrible circumstances. So Mr. Kabir was taken into custody without being told any specific things about his case, any specific things about anything, basically. I mean, just that in itself, we are not talking about any rule of law here. And when he was placed before the court, he was attacked by the mob, who tried to snatch him from the police and lynch him to death without anyone doing anything. They were calling him names. And it has been reported that he was punched several times by the mob. And the police did not provide him with any wheelchair, even though he needed it and he was
Exactly.
asking for it. They forced him to walk all the way through the stairs. And even when he pleaded before the court to sit on a chair, he was denied that. So we are talking about conditions that are, it's not just detaining him arbitrarily and depriving him from liberty arbitrarily. We're talking about more than that, putting him through
The mob
conditions
attacks.
against
Yeah.
you know in ways that could be considered as torture. Yes, so the conditions are not good at all, but we are working on the case, and we are hoping for the UN working group against on arbitrary detention to assess the case. And yes.
Thank you so much for filing that complaint, and let's see how it goes. Just for our listeners, let me give a very quick update. So it has been 121 days since Shahriar Kabir has been jailed, and he's kept in the jail just like any other ordinary criminals in Kasimpur jail in Bangladesh. What we heard that he even caught pneumonia once from sleeping on the floor, and his health is failing. He already had a couple of health complications even before this, and now they have been aggravated, what we hear. And until last week, as we hear, that he was denied medical treatment. So this is the situation. I think one of the members of his legal team in Bangladesh, he made a very interesting comment that Shahriar Kabir's future seems lost in the judicial labyrinth of Bangladesh. So the situation is quite dire and very bleak. My next question is for Natalia, and it has a context. The question is on the broader context, the broader implications, and it has a context. As you know, Natalia, except a few exceptions, international media is yet to catch up with what is going on in Bangladesh. How much have you heard about the declining human rights situation there, other than Shahriar Kabir's situation? What news do you get from what is going on in Bangladesh?
Of course, I personally and also my colleagues at the Never Again Association, we are trying to follow the situation in Bangladesh, especially after our colleague and friend is now arrested. And we follow, of course, the situation, and we particularly look for information about the treatment of minorities and indigenous people, especially now. And as we know, that we have the most probably challenging time in Bangladesh since 1971. And Bangladesh is a diverse country with different diverse population, with Hindu, Buddhist, Christian minorities being part of it, as well as indigenous people. And through various sources, there is information, we receive it, about violence against minorities, desecration of Hindu, Buddhist temples. But these are mostly our personal contacts. So we are in touch with different minorities, with different people we know from Bangladesh. And we are very much concerned about this. But at the same time, for example, I have seen on the media, international media, also the attempts to minimize or to justify violence of minorities in Bangladesh by saying that these minorities are politically involved. These are politicians. So they are involved, for example, in the political party Awami League. Therefore, it's not a violence against minorities. It's not a communal violence, but
as if that is okay.
Involved. And this is a strategy, what I would like to say, which usually used by perpetrators of those who try to deny or distort genocides, atrocities, by transferring the guilt to victims themselves. And this is what we have experienced in Europe, in Eastern Europe, during the Holocaust and after the Holocaust, when Jews were killed, for example, and there were arguments by perpetrators that they were killed because of being communists, because of supporting Bolsheviks. So in this understanding, the violence can be justified. So, and I can see the parallel here. And also I would like to mention that what is troubling in Bangladesh now, that Bangladesh is a post-genocide country, and it is a fragile country, I would say. And the work of dealing with the past, addressing the past atrocities in 1971 is far from over. There are still many instances of denying different aspects of genocides, distortion, minimizing, and also transferring guilt to victims themselves. Also, where is the role of a voice of religious and indigenous people? And I guess the voices of religious and minorities and indigenous people are often overlooked in these discussions. And as we know, our colleague and friend Shahriar Kabir, he has contributed to the process of dealing with the past. He dedicated his life to this process of dealing with the past of Bangladesh. And we know that I use the term dealing with the past, but we could use other terms as well. And we know that we have 4 pillars of dealing with the past: the right to know, the right to justice, the right to reparations, and guarantee of non-recurrence. So Shahriar Kabir contributed to all 4 pillars of dealing with the past, including the last one, by promoting peace. As we also work together on developing positive peace in Bangladesh. So, and this is what I would like to mention, that society very fragile now. It is polarized. The process of dealing with the past is very far from being over, and there are challenging time now. Also, the society is very, I think, traumatized, and minorities feel very insecure. So some of them were accused of supporting the Awami League, the previous ruling political party. But we should also understand that they feel very insecure. There were probably opportunities for them in the past to get jobs, because we know that minorities not always have a privileged position in societies. So, and now the situation is very challenging for minorities. So we try to follow, we try to look for information from different sources. And yes, and as you have already said, it is unbelievable, as the country is led by Dr. Muhammad Yunus, who is a Nobel Prize laureate, a respected person, authority for many. And we had a chance to meet Dr. Yunus in Warsaw, in Poland, when he attended the Peace Summit in 2013. And he was together with Lech Walesa, with Dalai Lama, and others. And as I said, he is respected, he is an authority. So perhaps this is the reason why many overlooked, why many don't want to look inside and to see what is really happening in Bangladesh, because we have a Nobel Prize laureate who is the leader of a government, but they just simply overlook what is happening behind, because even Nobel Prize laureates can make mistakes, and it is a challenging task to lead the country, which is a post-genocide country, and which didn't go through the process of dealing with the past fully since 1971. So this is, as I said, is very disturbing, and something should be done about this, informing international community, informing everyone what is really happening in Bangladesh.
Thank you, Natalia, for bringing the issue of genocide and in a post-genocide country. I'll come back to that. Actually, come back to that point later on. Just for our viewers, yesterday there was a protest in Dhaka. You probably have heard in the media already. The word indigenous population, it has been omitted from that reference has been omitted from the textbook, and which led to the protest by some of the indigenous groups, and they have been attacked. They have been attacked by some sectarian groups, and a lot of protesters have been, indigenous protesters have been injured. And so this is the kind of thing going on at the moment. But I'll come back to your point, the point on genocide you just mentioned. Before that, I'm just curious, like Mona, what does Shahriar Kabir's situation reveal about the current state of freedom of expression in Bangladesh? What does it say? What does it indicate?
I mean, it's a clear situation of it not being well. It's detaining a person like him for such bizarre accusations. It just shows that there is no rule of law, first to start with, and under the conditions that he's experiencing at the moment. Rights to freedom of expression, right to freedom, and deprivation from liberty, and right to fair trial. I mean, we are talking about the basic rights in a state which respects the rule of law that we are lacking here at the moment. We are I don't know in what other way I should put it.
It looks like that it does fit into a larger pattern of suppressing dissent, and
yes, of course.
Because freedom of expression, it is the right of the rights.
Yes.
Because that right is needed to protect other rights.
Of course.
So when that is attacked, I can see what you mean. So I'm coming back to Natalia about the point you made about genocide. You probably are aware that a few months ago, I think in September, Lemkin Institute, they issued a statement and they raised a genocide red flag. Like according to Lemkin Institute, they identified some early signs of genocide that is developing in Bangladesh since 5th August. Of course, not a full-blown genocide. That is not what Lemkin said. And we lawyers or those of us who work on international justice, genocide is not a word we use very lightly. It is a very serious word for us. And Lemkin actually mentioned that there are precursors of genocide. So my question for Natalia, you research Holocaust and you educate on it, and we all know that Holocaust did not start overnight. There were many precursors, early signs of it, before it became the full-blown Holocaust as we know it in hindsight. So Shahriar's case, what is interesting that he is not actually alone, and his is not the only case. There are hundreds like him currently treated this way. So Natalia, do you see any pattern developing here?
I'm familiar with a statement made by the Lemkin Institute, and I think it was very timely and important statement, also because Bangladesh is going through a very difficult time. And what also was written in this statement, that Bangladesh is a post-genocide, is a fragile society.
As you say.
And which is, as I said already, I have mentioned, the process of dealing with the past is still going on, should be done. And this is where Shahriar Kabir contributed. And as I have said, he was uncompromised human rights defender, and he was working in the field of genocide commemoration, prevention, and this is the reason probably he's imprisoned, because he was uncompromised and he was participating in this dealing with the past process. And I guess I don't know other people who are detained. I follow the situation, but I don't know them very well personally, as I know Shahriar Kabir, but I believe that these are people also outspoken about the process. So, and I think what we can see now happening in Bangladesh has also connection with what happened in 1971. And this is very disturbing because, as I said, a lot to be done to commemorate atrocities, what happened in 1971, and the process of reconciliation should be done properly, but also the voice of minorities, indigenous people should be included. It should be inclusive process. And at the moment when such people as Shahriar Kabir are out of the process, I don't know how the process will be developing. I know it was a challenging process for us, for in Eastern Europe, for example. In Central Eastern Europe, we know that I'm based in Poland, and we know that Holocaust, all death camps were in Poland, located in Poland, and 90% of the Jewish population was exterminated. Also many Roma people, but also from other European countries. And it took many years for Polish people also to go through the process. And I would like also to talk, but we could talk about the reaction of local people to the Holocaust perpetrated by Germans and allies, because there were also locals in Poland and other countries, in Romania, in Moldova. How did they react to this? Some of them supported Jews and Roma. Most of them were indifferent, but some of them collaborated with Germans. And actually, it was a very difficult, challenging issue to discuss in Poland, for example, also in Romania, in Moldova, despite these are different situations we are talking about. Until today, people will prefer to talk about positive aspects. I want to say, for example, that my grandfather, he collaborated, he wanted to do something also against his Jewish neighbors. So this is also a distortion, and this is very disturbing. And I know that it's a very challenging process. And I see that in Bangladesh it is also ongoing, and I don't know how it will be developed in the future. I think there should be, but maybe we could talk later a little bit about what can be done in this situation.
And we must
definitely such
this
organization as the Lemkin Institute, Genocide Watch, and many others, they should contribute to this and participate in
absolutely
collaborated. But such people as Shahriar Kabir, they should be in the process, because he is a symbol and he's also a pillar of the process, the whole process, as he contributed a lot to the dealing with the past.
No, thank you. That's a great answer. Mona, can you please tell us a little bit about the existing human rights law that relates to Shahriar Kabir's case, so that our viewers, they hear those things and they get familiarized with the provisions?
I would start with the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights. The first article, it says all human beings are the same in value and dignity, are born free and equal in dignity and rights.
So my next question is for Mona. Can you tell us a little bit about the existing international human rights law and the relevant provisions that relate to Shahriar Kabir's case?
I would start off with the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights, the very first article that declares that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. What we have in front of us is that this is not the case. This is not the case. Shahriar Kabir is being persecuted and he's not being treated equally. He doesn't have the right to speech, as we were discussing. He's not receiving the right to fair trial, and he's deprived of his liberty on wrong accusations, illegal grounds. I would say that.
And the issue of the way he has been treated in an indignified manner, I think that is also the thing. And you also mentioned before that the certain treatment can also be interpreted as torture, the way. So those are there.
Yes, definitely. The way and also the fact that he is not receiving any medical aid, that his health complication is totally left behind. He's not being in any way receiving any treatment, as we know, as we have been informed by his legal team. So it's so many rights that are being
breached.
Have been abused. Yes.
My next question to both of you, it is on advocacy and action. What can ordinary citizens and the global community do to demand his release? What else can we do?
I would say, as my dear colleague Natalia just mentioned, that the human rights organizations have a very important role to play and should not be quiet. We are living in a world which is not in a good state at the moment. So there is so much going on, and also it is easy to be forgotten because it's too much happening, simply too much happening, and that is unfortunately maybe also one of the reasons why Bangladesh is not mentioned in the media, or So international organizations have a very important role to play, and as Natalia mentioned, and some specific ones, Human Rights Watch, Genocide Watch, and also the civil society in general. I would say all those who respect human rights and democracy, and
they have a responsibility.
Yes, and we should never forget that we are talking a person who has such civic courage, who has the civic courage that put his life at risk like it has done, and we should not accept actually that this is it, that we are that there is no we should be awaiting Shahriar Kabir's return from the prison very soon. We should not accept this.
Because Shahriar Kabir, he had been a person who was vocal for other people's rights.
Yes.
And now his own rights are being trampled. The international civil society and everyone else, we have a duty actually.
I just want to mention one other thing, that we should also not forget that in the beginning of 2000, that Shahriar was a prisoner of conscience on the list of Amnesty International. So he's once again being treated this way by the country that he loves the most. Yeah, this is very terrible that this happens to him again.
Yeah, speaking of international human rights organizations, we discussed briefly Lemkin Institute's statement. The bizarre part is Lemkin Institute, when it issued the statement, that statement too didn't get a single word of mention in Bangladeshi media. But strangely, in a very quick succession, three responses to that statement were quickly published in three different platforms, all by, of course, the supporters of the regime, supporters of Dr. Yunus. And interestingly, those rebuttals where Bangladeshi media didn't utter a single word about Lemkin's warnings, it was Dr. Yunus's press secretary who went to actually the social media, started circulating the rebuttals, that he was calling on everyone to circulate the rebuttals to Lemkin. So I just wanted to add that. My next question is to actually, in reference to something Natalia said, that
Sorry, I didn't respond, I think.
Sorry. Yeah, my next question is to you, Natalia. You did mention that you wrote to some of the human rights organizations like Amnesty and others. I'm curious, what were their responses? Because I haven't seen any public position taken by those organizations yet.
So yes, since September, October, we have been actively involved with distributing of a letter, open letter, which was prepared by South Asian Democratic Forum and shared with different organizations. And I have been personally in touch with different also organization individuals and also my colleague from the Never Again Association. And there was different reaction. Actually, some of them were also shocked, and it was unbelievable for them that how it's possible, because Bangladesh is going through a process of changes towards democratic changes, and these should be positive changes. But at the same time, they have also a critical point that it could be done well, but there can be also mistakes done. So probably everything went in a wrong way now. And I think as you asked also, and my colleague Mona has nicely responded, what can be done in the future? I think there should be a coordinated response from civil society, from different organizations. And for example, I was very much impressed by when I participated in the United Nations Forum on Minority Issues in Geneva this November. There was a big delegation of different organizations and groups from Bangladesh, and all of them, they talked about minorities in Bangladesh, and this is an issue. And at the end of the forum, the special reporter on minority rights, Nicholas Levrat, he said that he summarized everything, and he said that we should think and we should investigate what is happening in Bangladesh.
No, Natalia, my
there are a
question
lot
was
of
a bit
voices
different.
here.
My question was like the major human rights groups. It looks like there is still a lot of them are still sitting on the fence. We haven't seen them coming up clearly with very clear statements on minority issues, on Shahriar Kabir, who had been a prisoner of conscience just 23 years ago, and he's facing the same fate again. And we scoured the internet, we scoured their websites of these big organizations, but we haven't seen any public response. So how do you see that?
I think also people sometimes, and they are careful. And we talked about Shahriar Kabir, who is uncompromised human rights defender. That is why he's in prison, because he's always outspoken. When something is happening, he goes and he say, and he doesn't think what will happen after, because he's saying something that is important. And maybe some organizations and individuals were very careful. They're observing the situation and they don't know. And also we have authority who is leading Bangladesh today, and probably is also something which brings some confusion about the real situation. But as I said also already, that even Nobel Prize laureates, they can also make mistakes. Every human being can make mistakes. So I think we should work more, we should think strategically, and we should work together to deliver this information to all organizations. And it's very difficult, because it is very difficult to start something new.
Yes,
it is very
we should
difficult
work
to talk
strategically.
when your voice is a minority
I must
voice.
agree with you. Yes.
And our voice at the moment is a minority voice. So, and that is why probably it is very difficult. But I think we should follow Shahriar Kabir and to be uncompromised in this, and to collaborate together with different organizations, and probably approach each organization, each individual individually. So I think it's important to work also individually.
We are reaching the end of our program. Do you have any message for Shahriar Kabir's family? Would you like to say something through this program to them? Anyone?
We are so sorry about this. We are so sorry about this, but please know that we are doing all that we can in our power to save Shahriar from this situation and bring justice for this unimaginable situation that he's finding himself in. And we are also hoping and praying for his health to cooperate with us. Yes.
Thank you. Natalia, do you have any message for his family?
I would like just to say that we are very grateful to the family of Shahriar Kabir and his colleagues for their resilience to the situation, and it is very important to be resilient, and we are with them, and we would like to do everything possible to bring Shahriar Kabir to be with us, hopefully very soon. Thank you.
One last comment for the government of Bangladesh or for Dr. Yunus. Do you have any appeal or anything to say?
If I may to say something to the government of Bangladesh and to Mr. Dr. Yunus, first of all, it is very important to think about such symbols of Bangladesh as Shahriar Kabir, who should not be in prison, because he's a person who should be honored in Bangladesh instead. And he's in prison. He's an important person for the future of Bangladesh. And the second thing is about minority and indigenous rights. I think that government of Bangladesh should follow very carefully to protect minorities and to follow 4 pillars of minority rights. This is protection of existence, protection, promotion of minorities and indigenous identity, equality, non-discrimination, and the right of effective participation. And I don't know how many minorities and indigenous people are involved now in politics, participate effectively in the rule of the state. So I don't know. So I think it's very important to follow and to preserve all these 4 pillars of minority rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Mona?
Yes, good question. Oppression, persecution is not the way. Torturing people, killing people is not the way. And as my colleague Natalia said, people like Mr. Kabir, we really have lack of them in the world. And the few that we have, we must honor. And he has such an important role in organizing the country, in helping the country to heal from the previous genocide and for the future, the democracy that Bangladesh and its people can really enjoy. The causes that Mr. Kabir has been working with it will benefit everybody, even the people who are persecuting him. If they would realize that by hurting him, they are hurting themselves, really, they would stop. I'm actually thinking about, just this came to my mind, the speech by Charlie Chaplin in the movie. Now I forgot the name. Yes, the speech that he had in the end. I mean, you shake when you listen to it. Please listen to it. Let us be a reminding to all of us, leaders around the world, and now we are specifically talking about Bangladesh and to the honorable Nobel Prize laureate. Please honor the prize. You have received it because as a role model for everyone else, we others are supposed to look up to you. So please honor the prize and the responsibility that it comes with the prize. And stop this before it's too late. Really stop this and honor the history and the history that you will leave after yourself. And save Mr. Shahriar Kabir's life before it's too late, please. So we are hoping for a change. We are hoping for wake up, really. Thank you.
That's nicely put. And oppression is not the way you said it. That is not the way. So, as we conclude today's urgent discussion, we must remember that this is not just about one man. It's about what he represents. Shahriar Kabir has dedicated his life to fighting for a just, inclusive and secular society, and for that, he is paying an unacceptable price now. The silencing of voices like his sets a dangerous precedent. It chips away at freedom of speech, which is the foundation of any democratic society. We cannot stand by while injustice prevails. Let me remind you again, Shahriar Kabir's health is failing. His rights have been stripped away and time is really running out. So we ask you, what can you do today to make a difference? we request you, please share his story, write to your representatives, write to international civil society organizations, and join the call for his immediate release. Please spread the word. Let's ensure his plight is not forgotten. Remember the name, Shahriar Kabir. Thank you for listening to SADF podcast, and a big thank you to our guests. Until next time, let's stay vigilant, let's stay active, and never stop standing up for what's right. Signing off for today, this is Rayhan Rashid. Take care, everyone.